Hey, it's the PC Gamer Show, and this week we're following up our massive hands-on preview with Cyberpunk 2077 with over 20 questions, 30, I don't know, I lost count, for Andy Kelly, our preview man himself, about every little detail we could think of, from the best outfit he saw to how open Cyberpunk's open world actually feels. Stick around.
Hey everybody, it's James Davenport with PC Gamer. Welcome to the PC Gamer Show, and it's kind of a special episode if you've heard of this game called Cyberpunk 2077. It's kind of been on our radar for quite a while now, and Andy Kelly, features producer, alongside me here at PC Gamer, actually got to play 4 hours of it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. 4 hours from the very start of the game.
Good God, yeah. And so on the website, You did what? You have this really detailed, nice preview of kind of like what you did in the game, and a couple news stories and some new gameplay. Not, as I understand, not from what you played, but just kind of a general capture from CD Projekt.
Just some B-roll that they supplied, but it was of the stuff I played. Just skipped and just picked a default character because I wanted to see more of the game. And yeah, that was it. They just left me to my own devices for 4 hours, and so I could. It wasn't like a sort of guided demo where I had to do a bunch of missions picked by the developer. I could, just go off on my own. I could explore, and I made sure I took a lot of time just to go off the beaten path and just look at stuff and drive around and play it like I would at home. Because previously demos are all very kind of guided and scripted, but this was just a chance to actually pull the camera away and from what the developer wants you to see and actually just look at it on my own terms. So that was good.
Yeah, and I think that's the big question, right? Is we've been talking about this game for feels like almost a decade now, and we've seen footage of it like every year. It looks good. It looks like a Cyberpunk game should, I guess. But the devil's in the details with these big open world RPGs, and The Witcher 3 definitely sort of like set a high bar at the time, and I think we're really curious to see what CD Projekt's capable of now, and in a new world, new setting, new characters. So today we're go read that stuff. Go read that stuff on the website pcgamer.com, and dig into the preview first. I highly recommend that because today we're just going to run through. I talked to some of our fellow editors and read your stuff, watched the video, and just listed a bunch of really granular questions about Cyberpunk, that not all of which you can probably answer, but many, I don't know, stuff we now might be able to talk about and pinpoint and sort of like put together an idea of what this game actually is. So why don't we just get into it? Sort of rapid fire, but don't feel like you have to give me one word answers or anything. By any
I'm
means.
ready.
All right.
Hit me.
Yeah, so we open in the Badlands, in your preview, sort of an area outside the city, deserty, kind of central Californian area. Did you get the sense there's a lot hidden out there, a lot to see, points of interest?
Yeah, so you start in like a little kind of almost like a Wild West town, like a little strip of buildings in the middle of the desert. So I did a bit of driving around, and I could definitely see buildings, radio towers, just things scattered around the desert. I didn't really get a sense of how big it is compared to like the desert and GTA 5 or whatever, but there was definitely stuff that I would have gone and looked at if I wasn't so eager to get into the actual city itself. But gotcha. The CDPR told me that they consider it a district of the city, so there's going to be a whole mission set out there. The storyline will probably involve you having to leave the city a bunch of times, so yeah, there's definitely stuff out there. It's not just like a kind of set for the Nomad intro. It's a proper region of the world.
Yeah, so, and I guess this is sort of a maybe an obvious question here, but so you got the good open world pull, seeing points of interest, both in the Badlands and in the city, and seeing something that interested you and just trying to get there and following through and finding something interesting.
Yeah, that's something CDPR were great at in The Witcher 3. It's not as open. Like in The Witcher 3, you could see like some, spire, miles away. Whereas in the city, it's more enclosed, but you can definitely see stuff on the skyline and buildings where you think, I want to drive over there and go up there and check it out. So yeah, it's got that feeling.
Right on. And early on in the demo, you get your car, and it's very nice dash, like lovely console detail. Like I could stare at it and study it for a very long time. But let's talk about how the driving feels. You touch on it, but how does it feel to steer in terms of turning, braking, tuning? Is it comparable to another game, like a GTA 4, a GTA 5, or something else?
I mean, the two, I drove two cars in the demo. One was the famous car that's in all the key artwork and stuff, the Quadra Turbo R. But the first one you start with, if you play as a Nomad, is more like a kind of 1980s UK rally car, like kind of small, chunky hatchback, with tons of like future tech slammed on it and retrofitted. And that thing to drive around, like, it's obviously designed for the Badlands terrain, so it was really fun, like really bouncy, and you could sort of send it flying off hills, and it kind of handled it well. I guess the feel of that car and the Quadra is more in line with GTA 5 in that it's kind of arcadey and accessible on a surface level, but it's rooted in like good physics, so you feel like it doesn't feel that slidey, slightly disconnected arcade way. It feels like you're actually stuck on the ground and resisting against terrain and stuff like that. So it's kind of accessible and fun, but still with a bit of something to it,
I gotcha. Cool. And does your car take damage? Did you get a sense it can blow up? It has destruction systems built in.
Yeah, mine never blew up, but it definitely takes visible damage.
Gotcha.
I did a lot of, when I was sort of bombing around the city, like in the Badlands, it's pretty open, so you can skid around quite safely. But when you're in the city, there's a bunch of traffic and lots of shop corners and narrow side streets, and so I ended up smacking into a lot of stuff. But the physics are quite rubbery, and I don't say that in too negative a way. It's not like you hit a wall and bounce off it, but it's got a slight rubberiness to it, where it means that you can slam into a bunch of other traffic and it won't stop you in your tracks.
Right.
I think they probably thought that would be frustrating if you were constantly hitting stuff and losing momentum. So you can really keep driving fast whilst pinging off stuff.
Right.
Which is, I think, I think it's worth doing that. Otherwise, it would just be annoying. Like if you every time you hit a bollard in the street or a lamppost, that you stop. So they've been quite. It's that arcadiness that just makes it fun, rather than maybe something like GTA 4 with its more simulation feel.
Right. The controls are sort of supposed to disappear to you pretty quickly, and
yeah.
All right, gotcha. Cool. Can you run over NPCs, and are you punished if you do?
You know what? I didn't try, and I didn't do it by accident, so I don't know.
Gotcha.
But I wish I had now. I don't know why I didn't. I just never felt the urge.
It's well, I get it. Like, it's an RPG, so it kind of like a GTA is a mayhem simulator, and that's sort of my. I have a question down here about that. It's kind of instinct in a GTA because it's baked into the culture of that game history, and I'm kind of wondering if we'll be able to create as much mayhem in something like Cyberpunk. But we'll get to that. So what's traffic like? Tend to be busy? Were you weaving in and out of cars? Was it? Did it feel crowded, like an actual crazy, packed in metropolitan?
Yeah, it's not quite like. I've been on an LA freeway, and I was, as someone from the UK, I was pretty blown away by the density of cars around me. So it's not like that. The streets are still full of cars, and like amazingly designed cars. I spent so much time just looking at the vehicle designs, a mix of like overtly futuristic stuff and like old, almost 70s and 80s muscle cars, and with futuristic stuff clamped onto them. So there's definitely traffic, and you can pull people out of their car and drive it. I never managed it because the interaction point to pull someone out of the car was like grayed out for me, as if I didn't have the requisite amount of cyber points or something. I don't know what it is, if it's strength or if it's some implant you can get. But so there's traffic, but it's not like wall to wall And I think that's probably another design reason, because if there was constantly traffic everywhere and you were driving between objectives, it'd be a pain in the ass if you were just constantly in gridlock or having to smash through cars like Destruction Derby. So yeah, but I think there's more, the pavements feel more dense with people than the streets feel dense with vehicles.
One more driving question. Does it feel pretty open and free, particularly in the Badlands? Can you just kind of off-road it and go wherever the hell you want?
Yes, and it's just completely, there's no limit to where you can go. I didn't hit any kind of invisible walls or anything. The only limitation I had was that the demo takes place in Watson, which is kind of a Japanese influenced area of the city, and I couldn't actually leave that district. And because there was police checkpoints and there was people talking about Watson being in lockdown, which was either a consideration for the demo or it's in that GTA thing, early GTA thing of saying, stick to this part of the island while you're learning the ropes, then we'll let you into the rest of the city. So I don't know if that's a structural thing from the game or the demo, but I couldn't leave Watson. But Watson's really big, so it still felt massive. I just couldn't go to Pacifica or any of the other places.
Yeah, The Witcher 3 did something similar, if I recall. Kind of that small area to just teach you the ropes of the open world to begin. So cool. Moving on to NPCs. So you said the sidewalks are really crowded. That's where you really saw the density of the city come into play. And you mentioned being able to talk to anyone. Some people have like just a quippy line of dialogue, and that's about it. But what else did you get a sense of what else you can do with strangers? Like, can you hurt anyone? Can you steal from people? Hack the odd person?
Yeah, well, you can, quite early on, you get an ocular implant that's hooked up to the NCPD database. So you can scan people, and if they've got a criminal record, it'll bring it up, kind of similar to Watch Dogs. And I remember I saw a guy in a kind of trench coat looking a bit shifty, and I pulled up the ocular implant, and it revealed that he was like a NCPD like hacker undercover or something. So there was a cool bit of that like discovery. I noticed a few times I'd find people like running away from someone who'd like started firing at them, like a bit of like random violence breaking out, and actually a tutorial tooltip pops up saying Night City is a dangerous place, trouble can come anywhere. If you linger too long next to NPCs, I was doing a lot of that, just checking out their fashion and stuff. I was spent a lot of time looking at clothes because there's just so much variety. They'll like get tense and nervous and start backing away from you, like shout at you and say, "Stop following me." Like, quite a basic interaction, but it did add a bit of color to it. Cool. So yeah, I didn't actually, but again, the same way I didn't feel the urge to run anyone over. I was so into the role playing that I didn't pull my gun out in a public area and start shooting strangers. Everyone I shot deserved it, as far as I could tell. So.
Yeah, I don't blame you. We'll find out. We'll find out when we can finally play the game, how much mayhem we can cause. But and if that's even something we want to do. But cool. So speaking of fashion, I'm kind of wondering. You list a lot of cool outfits in your preview, and you get a good excuse me taste of it in the new footage. Can you kind of like recall one of the best outfits you saw? Yeah, so this is the best outfit I saw. I didn't actually put in the preview, so this is podcast exclusive info.
Thank you. There was a guy walking down the street, and he had like a full on like cow. On the top half of him was like full on cowboy with the Western shirt and the bolo tie and the 10-gallon hat. But he was wearing like a really tiny pair of like denim cutoffs.
Yes.
With and like hot pants basically, and he had two like incredibly elaborate like mechanical legs that were like kind of golden. So he looked amazing. That guy really stopped me in my tracks. And then I got too close to him, and he started accusing me of following him, and I just backed off. But yeah, he was amazing.
That's rad. Did you get the sense that you'll be able to kind of dress up however you like to?
Yeah. There's basically, you're constantly picking up clothes from lockers and as loot and stuff like that. And at your apartment, you can change your clothes. And there's like a bunch of, there's that jacket that's in all the key art, with the lit collar. That's one piece of clothing of many. So yeah, there's visual customization, and also the clothes have stat bonuses, I think. I'm pretty sure they do have some sort of like, because there's like a loot tiering system, with colors going from basic to epic. These are not the terms in game, but so I think if you can find like an epic jacket, and it will look cooler than like just a regular one that you picked off some gangster's body or whatever. So yeah,
Right on.
clothes seem to be a big part of it. You see your in cutscenes, you see your body quite a lot. The camera likes to sort of swing down and show you what you're wearing on your legs and stuff, and your gloves and your hands. So that seems to be a consideration for people that get into the fashion aspect of it.
Sweet, perfect. Yeah, I'll be disappointed if I can't dress up like the cowboy you mentioned. So we'll run through some quick ones here. I don't want to keep you too long, but a ton of questions. What's the best Cyberpunk color you saw? Nuclear green, hot pink?
Lots of eye-searingly fluorescent purple in one nightclub that I really enjoyed.
Nice. Most appetizing restaurant or food, or maybe most disgusting, if that's what stuck out to you?
There was a place in Watson near your apartment where they had some like really nicely rendered like steamed pork buns, and they looked very nice.
Hell yeah. So there's this part in the preview where you mentioned brain dances, which are sort of these like memories you can relive, I guess, from the perspective of someone else, and then sort of explore unattached from their perspective and kind of fast forward, pause. In this place, they are kind of used for sexy time, or some. What's the really drab example you gave? Someone's death or watching people die.
Oh yeah. Like there's a whole market for people who record themselves dying, and then they're usually tricked into it from what I could see, and people pay to experience dying via a brain dance. There's all kinds of, sometimes people want to see the world through like celebrities' eyes as well, like live a day as a cyberpunk celebrity and stuff like that.
So it's kind of used as like a narrative, like detective device, and I get the impression it will be using it quite a bit because it's pretty in depth. Did you get the sense it's the kind of thing you can use for recreation purposes as a role-playing character? Did you get the sense that you can like revisit a place like this and watch the sexy dance or watch someone die? Is this an interactive element that kind of adds to the simulated system or simulated role-playing lifestyle?
Yeah, no, I didn't actually. I mean, I'd love that if you could collect brain dances and plug into them and play out little vignettes and stuff. That's a great idea. If they've not done that, they're missing a trick. But yeah, the only ones I did were one of a couple of gangsters holding up a liquor store, and then one of them dying, and that was to teach you the ropes of the brain dance thing. So you go through that memory, and it tells you how to pick out thermal layers and audio layers to find clues and stuff like that. And the other one I probably wouldn't say just for spoiler reasons, but it was like part of a mission. So yeah, the only two I did were like mission related, but I would love it if there were more recreational ones in there.
Yeah, and sort of like as a follow-up, did you get the sense there are a lot of like kind of minor interactive activities in this world? Like GTA is my only real analog, like mini games, barbershops, tattooists. Can you go to a bar and just drink recreationally whenever you want?
Yeah, I mean, there's icons on the map for that stuff, like closed shops and bars and stuff. But I never actually tried any of that myself. But you'd hope that there was ways to just live a day in the city without doing any cool cyberpunk stuff.
Run through a couple more here. Toilets, do they flush? Did you get to flush a toilet?
I didn't encounter any.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't even see any.
What?
But judging by the level of detail elsewhere in the game, like I'm guessing they're going to be genre-defining toilets, probably.
I'm sure. We'll get a whole article about it. Is there sort of a central hub, like an apartment or clubhouse that you return to?
Yeah, you've got your own apartment, which you can sleep at to change the time of day.
Gotcha.
And like you get driven back there early on in the game and it teaches you some of the basics of changing clothes and stuff like that. And your apartment's really high up, so you can open the blinds and look out over the city. And it's they've picked the point for your apartment for the most beautiful view of the city. It looks amazing.
Right on. How's the clutter, the random rubbish and nonsense kind of littered around? Does it feel natural and good? I think of The Division a lot when I think of this, and it's a thing that stands out to me and is important to me.
I think The Division is probably that's peak clutter in video games, and that world's kind of post-apocalyptic, so it's messier. Night City is messy, but it's clear that there's you see garbage trucks and stuff. So there's a bit of like cleaning going on. So it's not maybe as cluttered as that, but like the general level of detail is pretty wild. And even down to like magazine covers you can read on stands in shops, and garbage lying around, and cops, setting up crime scenes and stuff like that. Yes. And that's the thing. It's, you can see where the money went. Like it's lavish. It's like Rockstar levels of lavish, world building and density.
Speaking of Rockstar again, did you encounter sort of any ambient moments similar to Red Dead Redemption 2's kind of random encounters that they're not really marked as side missions or anything? They just kind of happen in the world, little vignettes.
Yeah, there was nothing like on the level of like, I think maybe from what I've seen, I think Red Dead is better at those little organic feeling encounters with catching weirdos in the woods doing odd stuff, or two guys trying to blast open a safe. Like I think that, I mean, they've got the benefit of having a massive empty-ish world with very few people in it, so they can probably spend more time hand animating these little moments. Whereas the emergent encounters I had in Cyberpunk were more like gang fights breaking out and like people running away in terror and sort of all kind of violence related. I never ran into any like stranger who waved me down and said, "Come down here to this back alley," and or whatever. Like it was. Gotcha. It felt more kind of action oriented, but that could have been just from what I played of it though. Like, and comparatively, I maybe explored the open world for like an hour and a half, so maybe that's not enough time to see all that stuff. But there's definitely stuff going on, but it didn't feel as cool as like encountering someone in Red Dead and getting drawn into a little story.
Gotcha. Moving through some more. How's the music, specifically the radio? Did you just get the sense there's the breadth and personality of like multiple radio stations? Again, the easy comparison is like a GTA.
Yeah, there's a bunch of radio stations, but I didn't find that out till right at the end of my demo. So I was like listening to whatever was in my car. And it was all kind of the music that they've had in the trailers and stuff, like very aggressive synth music. So I mean, I would love like a station that's maybe a bit more like ambient Vangelis type music or something. Like I was yearning for a bit of that. Like when I think of Cyberpunk, I don't think of like really hardcore synth wave music. I think of like dreamy Vangelis Blade Runner music. So I would love a bit of that in there. But from what I saw, it was just a lot of like almost like new metal screaming men and really like harsh synth. But yeah, there's a bunch of stations in there, but I just ran out of time before I could actually test them out.
Cool. I'm not going to ask too much about the quest because like I think your preview does a good job sort of going over I guess how they branch, and that's what I think most of the preview events have been about, is how they branch. But do they hit, this is a question from someone on staff, do they hit more like a Witcher or a Deus Ex to you in terms of design?
Yeah, the one I played was very Deus Ex, very, very Mankind Divided, especially.
Interesting.
Like you go into a kind of gang hideout of this group called the Maelstrom, who are like super augmented guys who are like more machine than man, to use the cliche. And you have to, a deal goes bad and you have to fight or sneak or hack or whatever your way out. And it felt really Deus Ex to me, although there wasn't, from what I saw, there wasn't as much environmental stuff as Deus Ex. Like Deus Ex for me is a game about sneaking through vents and finding shortcuts. The route felt more prescribed, but the number of things to do in it was still pretty high. So it was not quite in the level of like an immersive sim, but it felt more Deus Ex than The Witcher for sure.
That's a follow-up to that. Did you crawl through a vent at all?
I did not.
No vents?
I might have just missed the vent, but I didn't climb through a vent.
Okay, can't confirm or deny presence of vents. So what's the most clever you felt during the demo in that way? Did you ever feel clever?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, there's ways of I think I like hacked into a guy and a grenade on a guy's belt and made it explode when his buddy walked past. That felt pretty good. I took two of them out at once, but it felt quite set up. Like I don't feel like I felt that moment out. I feel like it was kind of placed in front of me. But I quite boringly put all my perk points and skill points and have been really good with pistols. So I just basically pistoled my way out of the base and shotgunned my way out for a bit. So much that one of the developers kind of observing my playthrough was like, you can pick up weapons from the enemies, like as if to say, why are you just using the pistol? But I'm quite boring in games where if there's a pistol and a way to like be really good at pistols, I always try and be that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe I'm the wrong person to ask about that, about being. But from what the demos they've shown, I think that the game's supposed to be full of ways to mix and match play styles and skills to kind of creatively solve problems. So I'd like to see more of that. But yeah,
we'll need to play it for a long time to see how that articulates. But a couple more for you. How does the shooting feel? Does this feel like a shooter to you, or an RPG first?
Yeah, they've obviously spent time making the guns feel good. There's like a group of weapons called tech weapons, which use magnets to like fire projectiles. They're kind of like real guns. And I had a tech shotgun, and it felt, it was really, not to get too gun porny about it, but it felt like really nice to fire and like kind of shred through armor and sends people flying back, and has a really wide spread like that. Felt really nice, and it felt like they've spent time making the guns feel good. Like it was the opposite of something like Fallout 4, where guns are clearly an afterthought. They feel quite weedy. Gotcha. Yeah. And I mean, the pistol felt nice. I used that most of the time. But yeah, I think that effort has gone into making it a good shooter as well, I think.
Okay, good to hear. Did you play with a keyboard and mouse or a controller for this demo?
Yeah, no keyboard and mouse allowed, which was, I found quite frustrating. I hate playing first-person games with a controller. It was fine for
curse. Yeah,
it was the PC version with a bunch of ray tracing and stuff enabled. So it looked amazing, and it ran smooth even over the kind of streaming software I was using to play it. But I was stuck with a controller, which was fine, great for driving. Like usually in these games, I'll switch to the controller for the driving, then go back to mouse and keyboard for wandering about and stuff. But so that's it. I feel like I didn't get a fully complete feel for the combat because I'd play it with mouse and keyboard, and for me, that's how I judge the quality of a shooter. So I can't wait to play it properly. Interesting.
Okay, cool. Did you get a look at the graphics options while you're in there, or were you even allowed?
That was all sealed off, but from what I could gather, everything was cranked up, like all the ray tracing and stuff like that. It looked, the reflections were bananas. It was just constant neon reflected in wet things throughout the whole demo. That was quite amazing looking.
Love it. So any other fun celeb appearances?
No, I didn't even see Keanu.
No Keanu. Well, that was my next question.
No. Yeah, his name was mentioned. You go into a bar and you order a drink, and the bartender goes, "To Johnny Silverhands coming up." And apparently, like the regulars in this bar Afterlife, if you make enough of a name for yourself, you can get a drink named after you. So he obviously frequents that particular watering hole. But yeah, he wasn't. I think. I mean, isn't he like some sort of digital ghost or something? They were saying
lives in your head somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, he wasn't there, and I didn't. I mean, I looked some of the voice actors up, and they've made quite a like. Despite having Keanu in there, they've made quite a maybe odd decision, like to hire a lot of like kind of people who've just got like voice acting histories. Like they haven't spent all their money on hiring a bunch of celebrities, which is probably for the best.
Yeah.
But it feels more like Red Dead, and it's like people you've not heard of. Like,
gotcha.
Yeah. So although I wouldn't say the voice acting and writing was nowhere near as good as Red Dead. I mean that. That game's got a kind of new level of like natural sounding character interactions and stuff. I don't think it's like that.
Gotcha. And that was sort of a follow-up is in our early looks at Cyberpunk, I think a common criticism we had, and maybe because we like the writing of The Witcher so much, and the performance of Geralt, that it's kind of hard to not expect something comparable or that hits similarly from Cyberpunk. Did you feel like the writing was awkward and flat, or do you feel like it's improved? Do you feel like it's occupying the same quality level as like a Witcher or something like a Red Dead, or is it still kind of not hitting?
I don't think it doesn't strike me as being as good as Red Dead or The Witcher. I mean, obviously with The Witcher, they had the benefit of a really established great character to work with, but it's kind of, it felt oddly flat. Like there was no character that really stuck out as like there was no bloody Baron, like someone who really sticks out and you go, damn, that's a good character. But it wasn't like some of the early trailers suggested it would be full of like quite cringy, forced future speak, but there wasn't as much of that actually as I thought. I mean, people mostly just speak like humans and throw in the odd bit of cyberpunk slang, but like it didn't excite the writing and story. Actually, the story was quite compelling, but the writing and dialogue didn't excite me half as much as the setting. I think that the setting is the thing with this game.
Sure.
I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong, especially since I only saw a tiny fraction of the complete game. But yeah, nothing. It felt like that was the bit that was the least interesting to me, was the characters and dialogue.
Just a few more for you. Do you feel like the dialogue choices were more structured around playing a nice guy, mean guy, etc., or making interesting, distinct decisions?
That's a hard one to say. I didn't have that many dialogue like options, but they seemed to be. There was a lot of options to mislead people, which I liked. So you could go and do a job and then come back to the guy who gave you, and you can like choose to leave out a bunch of details that maybe will help you down the line. Like you can. There was a sense I could play people against each other and manipulate people, and I think I'd love to see how that all adds up by the end of the game. Like if you've misled and manipulated and lied to a bunch of people, how that if all that can come crashing down on you, or sever ties with certain characters. Like so that was the most interesting thing, of being able to be really deceptive and play a long game. Although I never got to see the outcome of that long game, but yeah.
Okay. Final question, kind of a twofer. How cyber is it, and how punk is it? And that sounds like a silly question, but people argue about what cyberpunk means and what punk means, and I'm kind of wondering if it retains this true spirit of the genre throughout.
It's extremely cyber. Like I mean, the technology and stuff is great. Like I've always loved the technology in the Metal Gear games, like Yoji Shinkawa's mech design and stuff are great. There's a bit of that to it, like some of the machinery and the augments and stuff stuck on your car and all that. So it's hella cyber. As for being punk, like it didn't really provoke me or strike me as subversive. Or I mean, like, and you go into one of the nightclubs and it says, "Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?"
Yes, you swear away.
It says "fuck to death" in neon above the above the bar, and it's like, yeah, I mean that's kind of I did notice that and remember it, but like nothing felt like it was boundary pushing or like truly edgy, or nothing really pushed my buttons, So like it was just, but it was just like quite standard cyberpunk imagery, but with some cool little visual flourishes. There's the Afterlife bar, as I say this in my preview, it used to be a morgue like 20 years ago. And so all the patrons have got the pulled out morgue slab things and they're using them as tables for their drinks. Like there's some nice little visual things like that, but nothing that made me feel like I was being provoked by its punkiness.
Gotcha. Well, maybe once
a lot of cyber and a little bit of punk.
Okay. Maybe once we kind of get deeper into the story, we'll have some opportunities to truly be punk, but we'll see. Anyway, Andy, thanks a bunch for giving us all these tiny little details about Cyberpunk 2077. Really appreciate it.
Cool.
So again, go to pcgamer.com, check out the footage, read the preview, read the news, and stick around on the website, because I'm sure there's going to be, besides this podcast, plenty more details trickling out from other folks' playthroughs across the internet. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks for joining us on the PC Gamer Show. PCGamer.com/tag/podcast for our entire archive of shows. You can go to iTunes. Is it called iTunes anymore? Or they call it Apple Music or something now? Apple Pod? I don't know. Who cares? On the Apple thing, search the PC Gamer Show. You can find us there. Spotify, Google Play, anywhere you want to listen to podcasts, you can find us. And until next week, don't forget to game on. Do you like my sign off there, Andy?
I do.
Thank you.
I like it a lot.